Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
I've talked about Joe Karp so many times with so many people, and he has really lived up to any expectation anyone could have had. You know, Joe, we talk about, I'm talking now with Joe Karp, good morning. We talk about people with enthusiasm and compassion and dedication, and whether it's in home health agencies or medicine or finance, but in law, you're it. You just do a great job for the older adults.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's a good.
That was a good segue, right?
Actually, there's an interesting thing that we're going to be working on ultimately. As you know, my younger son Jonathan just joined the firm as an attorney.
I know.
And we're going to be working on our older adults to get their younger adult children in to see us too. And Jonathan's going to sort of head up that task force because people don't realize that younger adults, particularly those with children, need some legal documents, and even those that don't. I mean, if you can remember the Terry Schiavo case, that all focused around one issue, really. The thing that caused all of the problems with Terry Schiavo is she never did a health care surrogate. And all bets were off. She never designated who she wanted to be in charge. So you don't have to be an older adult to need some legal documents. You just need to be an adult.
True.
And the other thing we're doing for our younger adult clients is about 2 years ago, Florida finally passed a law that made so much sense. Many of your listeners who are older adults have this situation. Your daughter and your son-in-law go on a trip, and they bring your grandson and granddaughter to stay with you. Right? That's a common phenomenon,
yes, of course.
right?
Yes.
What authority do you have as a grandparent to make medical decisions for that child while your daughter is in Aspen or Vail or in a plane? So Florida passed a law, so for Floridians it works, that we now have a law that says a parent can designate a medical surrogate for their children to make medical decisions if the parent is unavailable.
Good.
Because think about the problems that could exist if you don't have that. Just politics. Why did you decide, Mom? Well, because there was nobody around. Doctor, I'm not going to let you decide something this serious. We need to talk to your daughter, you know. So it's a very important thing. So while we're taking care of older adults, and we're going to continue doing that and work for seniors diligently, but we're going to work for seniors and their families. So it's just, you know, the times they are changing, as Mr. Dillon said. So we got to deal with everything. Unfortunately, they've added laws. And you can see as a grandparent, if your son, I can't imagine your daughter-in-law giving up the triplets for 14 minutes, but that's a separate issue. Okay, that's a separate issue. But just once, she said, can you watch the kids for 2 days?
Oh, right.
You want to know that you have the authority.
You know, that's interesting.
The fan to make a decision.
Very interesting, Joe. That is a whole new thing, because I do notice that I don't know why, and maybe it's not true, that the people now in their 40s who have children act differently than we did in our 40s. We let them out of our sight. We did everything. They don't. They're with them on their arm everywhere. And so this is probably even more critical.
Yeah, and and you can see you want to make that decision. And I mean, I've had, you know, so it's just important stuff. Yeah, when I was a kid and when your son was a kid, he'd say, I'm going to the park.
Right.
Okay. He's going to the park.
Right.
Now, in retrospect, with what's gone on in society, I'm sort of feeling that maybe I wasn't such a cute kid because nobody ever propositioned me in the park. Nobody tried to lure me into the men's room. Nobody found me so interesting.
It's
I would
true.
just go to the park, play ball, get schmutzy, and run around and go home hot and sweaty and dirty.
And as a woman, as a little girl, I never had those problems either. So maybe I wasn't cute enough. I don't know.
It's interesting, and I think part of and I use the word problem loosely, part of it is that we have more information, that news travels. When somebody would molest a child, especially if it was a family member, nobody got arrested. Everybody just shut up about it back then. You didn't want the embarrassment for the child. You didn't want the embarrassment for the family. And you just watched dirty Uncle so-and-so whenever he came over to visit. You know? It's just that it's a different world. I mean, we are in an information-moving world, and there's also less shame attached to anything today. I mean, when I was a kid, you couldn't say the word cancer. It was the C word. That's what they called it, the C word. She has the big C.
Yeah, and then if your grandma didn't,
word.
And if grandma couldn't remember anything, they just kept her in a closet.
Yeah, or they would just say, if they really, like I remember one of my mother's aunts clearly had what we would now know to be Alzheimer's. I mean, she was unable to articulate, and she would just babble, and she was not in at all, at least to the rest of the world. God knows what people with Alzheimer's actually know. But it was just, they would say she's senile at best. But there was never a diagnosis, and there was almost never there was never a reality to deal with the decline. It was just, okay, that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yes, so we are concerned about our senior clients. We take care of them. We sit with them. We try to make sure they understand why they need to do stuff and what to do and when to do it, and also what not to do. We meet with a lot of people where we tell them what not to do. One of the things that's interesting is because, as I told you 20 years ago, elder law everybody's going to swear they practice elder law in 10 or 15 years.
Right.
Years ago.
You always did, yes.
And now a lot of people throw elder law as part of their label. Estate planning and elder law. And many of the people who are trying some things for Medicaid planning and stuff, since they don't necessarily, and part of it is just who you are as a person and a lawyer, and part of it is the gift of doing this for so many years, the experiential level. Some of the advices that I see given that will, in fact, perhaps qualify somebody for Medicaid is bad advice. I mean, I always start with, before we even get into doing Medicaid, after I do family history and questions about that, I talk about the longevity of the person who's going to be in a nursing home. So we talk about the economic viability of it, because I've seen people told to cash in $400,000 IRAs, pay income tax, even if we average it out, of 30%, $120,000, to get Medicaid. We want to know, do you think this person has $120,000 worth of longevity to justify the work, the pain, the suffering, or are they going to be dead in 2 months? And he's going to say, bad decision. So with all due respect to Dr. Mencia, what I always tell my clients when they say the doctor won't give me a straight answer, I say, one, ask if your loved one is hospice appropriate, and if they are, that gives you a clue. And then talk to the hospice nurse, because they will give you and they'll give you a clearer picture of what they've expected, and they'll tell you if they can't tell. But they'll also say, no, I can tell that this person has limited time. So we talk to people about stuff like that. We talk to people honestly about their disabilities, their infirmities, their spouse's infirmities. Should your husband still be making your medical decision if his hearing is shot? If his decision-making is limited now? And unfortunately, as we all know, as we go through life, the sharpest of us decline both physically and cognitively. We're not who we used to be. You look at President George Bush was back in the hospital. This guy was a strong and he was a and you can identify with this entirely. I mean, he was a fighter pilot during World War II.
Yes,
those are not wimpy guys.
Nope.
Those are smart. They're smart. They're able to think fast. We responded quickly. We entrusted them with serious responsibility, and they came out of it, and they became heroes in our country, and they did a bunch of things. I mean, he became President Bush. He was head of the CIA. He was vice president. He was congressman. He was many, many things for our country. But you look at him now, and you can see somebody whose body is clearly enfeebled and whose cognitive skills are still there, but not what they used to be. He's somebody who should be consulted, but not the decision maker probably anymore for his wife's health if she couldn't make it. So we have these honest conversations with both of them. We say, do you think that you no longer are appropriate to make your wife's medical decisions? Do you think you can't hear the doctors? So we care about our clients, and then we have honest conversations about their children and their families and their interactions and what they're doing and whether what they're doing will harm or help the family.
And you talk about people as though they're all going to be cooperative. Now, because I live in a condominium with a lot of people with dogs, we start talking to each other. And there is a young woman she's one of 6 children, and her mother is not doing well, but one of the kids who apparently has, I don't know if she has authority, if she actually has written authority, but she's the strongest one in the family. Everyone's afraid of her. She's taking control of what should be happening to her mother. And where this woman down here who has a lot of degrees, she's very smart, she can't even suggest anything. She's, no, we're not doing that with Mom when it's all wrong. And all the kids seem to be afraid of this older sister. So how do you deal as a lawyer with people like this?
Well, the answer is, number one, if Mom has given her the authority.
She did.
And Mom has put it in writing. We're sort of stuck with it. Mom had to make that decision. And then I'll get to the other side of it. Mom made that decision. And the person I always talk when you're making decisions, who you're going to appoint, you should appoint somebody who you think would do what you want, but somebody who will also keep the avenues of communication up between the children. Even though they're the one who gets to decide, you want input. I mean, there's value in input. And, if you name somebody who's arrogant, who says, I don't care, this is what I'm doing, and rather than, Mom has given me this responsibility, and I respect your opinion, but since Mom has given me the deciding factor, and that's my burden, I have to live with the decision I'm making. The other thing we run into, which is where I thought you were leading, is not the stubborn child, but I got a call from a client's daughter that I spoke to on Thursday. Mother and dad, when they totally had it, but knew that, we can decline, did all of their documents. They even created an irrevocable trust to protect some money and they did revocable trust, and they did healthcare surrogates, and they did powers of attorney and all of that. And Mom is now basically checked out, and and the daughter can do what she can on certain things for Mom, and Dad can do the other things. And Mom's totally compliant. So when we've done documents for somebody who's totally compliant, there's no problem. You say, if I can't make my own medical decisions, my son can or my daughter can. And you can't make them, and the doctors talk to you, the daughter, and you say, do this for Mom, do that for Mom, and you pay the bills, and Mom doesn't even bother writing checks anymore, and she's there. That's the situation when the documents work. Her father, though, is actually equally checked out, except he's not passive. The father doesn't just sit there. The father is now writing checks to these scams that come in the mail. He's sending out 20 checks a week. The father has fired every home health care person they brought into the house to take care of the mother. And the father is, quote, in charge of the mother's medical decisions. The father is totally non-compliant, totally hostile, totally... So, and the daughter doesn't have the legal authority to overrule him because the documents name the father first, or even if he was a single individual, until you're declared incompetent, you can do whatever the hell you want with your money because it's your money, and you can do whatever you want medically. And now the daughter is faced in the dilemma that she is going to have either resign herself to her father's behavior, or she's going to have to move to have him declared incompetent and in a guardianship, notwithstanding the legal documents, because he has the right to do things for herself. And she's made a decision that I respect. She said, if my father was making bad decisions for himself, I wouldn't care. I would care, but I would not challenge his cognitive skills. I would just stroke him. But my mother is suffering. My mother's not getting the kind of attention because my father's in charge. And I feel I have a duty to my mother to have my father declared incompetent so I can take care of her because he's first in line. So we run into those situations too. What do? You've done estate planning documents, Anita. I've done estate planning documents for myself. What does your son do if you say, no, I'm going to spend my money wildly. I'm going to refuse medical attention. There's dilemmas that arise that sometimes we're stuck with the court system. Fortunately, for 99% of my clients, they are compliant. They set this up, and even when many of them get it that they're no longer able to handle things and they just defer to their child, and many of them just are oblivious and just let the child act because they're not even attentive to what's going on. But every once in a while, we get into somebody who's a loose cannon.
Yep.
And those are sad family affairs.
Yeah, and so I know that you do a lot of preventive work. We talk about medicine, but in legal work, you see this. That's what I've always admired about you. You see 30 years ahead, and in your documents and your discussions, you would say this to someone.
Oh, absolutely. And when I have somebody come in and they're talking about whether they want to do Medicaid for a loved one, Medicaid planning, should we start to plan because we have a loved one who clearly has Alzheimer's-like symptoms if they're not clearly defined? I always have one line that I use, and it's not a line, it's a fact. I say, this person is one fall away from a nursing home. They're one fall away. And I'll turn to the caregiver, and I'll say, you may be the one who falls. If you fall, can your loved one stay home alone? If you break your hip, and you can no longer handle yourself, can your husband stay home alone? If he falls, do you think he could cognitively rehabilitate if he fell and he had to learn how to walk again? And that's part of the. So I try to bring an awareness to the potential that exists with all of us. I mean, I had a friend who's a lawyer who called me up and he said, "Joe, I have to come in and do my estate plan." He met with me in 2004, and he said, "I got to do my estate plan. I'll get back to you." He comes back to me in 2017, and I said, "Okay." He said, "Can I come in right away?" I said, "Sure. What's going on?" He said, "Well, I just realized this is really important because I had emergency bypass surgery 4 weeks ago. I went to the doctor and he said, 'You're going right into the hospital.' And he said, 'I took care of nothing.' He said, and he's still practicing law. He said, 'I went into the doctor. I had to call the office from the doctor's office and say, cancel my appointments for the next few weeks. I'm going into the hospital.'" Mm. So you never know when it's going to hit. You just don't know. And the other thing is people should always be checking if they know they're dying. I just had a dear friend who passed away, and her husband came in with her children, second marriage, very good marriage, and she knew she was dying, and she made an assumption that I always tell people don't assume. She, or at least there's a belief that she thought she had changed her beneficiaries under her IRA, and she had not. And that just leads for some potential contentious behavior, because what did she want? Well, we know what she did. We know what she said she was going to do. Did she change her mind and not do what she intended to do? Or did she neglect to attend to it? And it depends what side of the coin you're on, right?
Yeah.
If you're the one who thinks you were supposed to get something, you say, "Oh, she was just too sick to get to it." If you're the one who's getting it, you say, "Well, no, I think she thought about it and changed her mind." So getting there, I have people come in all the time and they say, "Who's the beneficiary of this life insurance policy?" And they say, "So-and-so." I say, "Contact the insurance company and get proof of that." They say, "Why?" I said, "Because when you're dead, we can't change it, and everybody's going to have to know anyway. Document it." So, and and then I finally get them. It's a lot cheaper to fix it while you're alive. It's free to change your beneficiary designation or to fill it in. And we see these all the time.
Well, one thing, I don't think we've talked about this, but we do know that, for instance, someone goes to one lawyer and they have their documents done, and that lawyer knows the person. Then the kids get involved. They go to a different lawyer, and they maybe don't negate the first one. Maybe they don't know about it. That's really an important thing that we've never discussed, I don't think.
Yep. We in fact, we won't see the parent without the children initially. With the children, we want the children out of the room initially, assuming the person is not in the hospital or in a nursing home to begin with. And we just got a call the other day, and my son John has seen what we call the taffy pull. We had one child call up and say, "I need to bring my mother in to do a new power of attorney. It's going to be me. Can you have the papers ready when we come in so she can sign it? Because my brother took her to a lawyer 3 weeks ago and had himself named, and Jonathan's used us already." And he said, "I'm sorry, we can't do that. We don't put in who you want, and we're not going to get in the middle of a taffy pull. If your mother wants to change it, take her back to the lawyer who did her documents." We should mention our workshop since they're coming up next week, and 8 o'clock is creeping in.
Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to tell everybody
you want me
about.
To do it, or you got
no,
it?
I have it, but the thing I want to say though is about the workshops. These are not just typical seminars, workshops. You will learn so much, and we only have a minute or two, and I'm going to do it. But it's really worth your going to see this. So here we are. It's April the 25th. We're starting. It's Tuesday, April 25th from 1:30 to 4, the Courtyard by Marriott at Boynton Beach. Wednesday, April 26th from 1:30 to 4 at Palm Beach Gardens Marriott. No reservations are required. If you'd like to call, though, for more information, you can go to 1-800-893-9911, or you can go to their website, which has the seminars for this month and then next month and so much other information. It's karplaw.com, KARPLAW.com. These are extraordinary, and you really should go and attend, and it's worthwhile. So thank you, Joe. I know I'm going to be seeing you, I think, in May. I have an appointment set up, and that's great, and I appreciate everybody who's listened, and thanks, Joe, and you always do such a great job.
Just a heads up, we're not doing one in May, so come in April because we're not doing it till June, and that's because we want to keep our calendar clear to see people in May. So
thanks, Joe.
Tell us Anita sent you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Bye.